What if I told you that we can no longer go out of our homes? At least not as we're used to. Because going out would imply breathing toxic air that makes us sick to death. Would we wear masks? Oxygen tanks? How would our lives going to be affected? This is why we want to talk to you about air pollution, the direct effects it has on our health, and the long-term consequences of the pollutants once they're released into the air. But above all, about the small changes we can do in our daily lives to be able to solve, however little it may seem, to this problem that affects us all.
Throughout our lives, we have probably came across the term fossil fuels, and perhaps that burning them is bad for the environment. But what are fossil fuels in the first place? Fossil fuels are nothing more than the fossilized and buried remains of animals and plants that lived millions of years ago. Because of their origins, fossil fuels have a high carbon and hydrogen content. Some examples are coal, oil, and natural gas, which can be burned for energy, whether to fuel our cars, power our factories, or keep the lights in our homes. The problem is that once we burn the fossil fuels, the carbon and hydrogen that contains are released into the environment.
Once we have identified the source of a problem, we can start discussing the direct effects that the emission of these gases has on our health. Breathing air with high concentrations of carbon monoxide can lead to dizziness, confusion, loss of consciousness, critical damage to organs such as heart and brain, or ultimately death. This is really worrying and are cases that have started to cure. For example, that of Bella Roberta, the first recorded death due to air pollution. Her mother, Rosamond Casey Deborah, an activist for breathing clean air is every child's human right, tells us how the pollution around the area where she lived was far above the levels accepted by the WHO. This is why entities such as the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, a U.S. federal agency responsible for the protection of the environment, have begun to set air quality standards for major pollutants ranging from carbon monoxide to nitrogen dioxide to sulfur dioxide.
However, air pollution affects not only us humans, but other species as well, including other ecosystems. It's not only about the emissions of gases released directly into the atmosphere, but the subsequent chemical reaction of the pollutants once released into the air. One of the most severe reactions is the acidification of the ocean, as mentioned by Davidson Tisch, author by the Gale Encyclopedia of Environmental Health. This occurs when the carbon dioxide that was in the atmosphere dissolves into the water, forming carbon acid and consequently acidifying the water, generating a change into the potential of hydrogen. This affects many marine species such as coral reefs, affecting their skeleton density and leading them into their death.
As we can see, the emissions released into the environment by the burning of fossil fuels are harmful to our health, the environment, and the rest of living beings that inhabit them. However, we can stem the impact of these harmful pollutants with small steps such as taking public transportation, using environmental friendly means of transportation such as walking or biking, or taking actions such as carpooling, all of which reduce the amount of harmful emissions. According to the American Public Transportation Association, APTA, a non-profit group that promotes and advocates for public transportation interests in the United States, traveling by public transportation is 10 times safer per mile than traveling by car, which is a 90% reduction in the chances of a person being involved in an accident.
Regarding carpooling, programs such as Go Smart New York City, funded by the federal government and managed by the New York City Department of Transportation, NYC DOT, claim that the average rush hour commuter in New York spends 74 more hours in traffic each year, which is one of the longest congestion delays in the country. Those carpooling saves time by using the HOV lane, and passengers can use the time to nap, work, or chat instead of stressing out behind the wheel as well.
Air pollution is an invisible global pandemic. Let's take a moment to think. What does the future we want to look like? Do we visualize ourselves locked in our homes for fear of going out and breathing air that would not hesitate to end our lives? Or do we see ourselves rather than accomplishing our goals with our families, our friends, even our pets? Do we want to keep wearing masks, or worse, even bulkier equipment like gas masks or oxygen tanks? Or do we prefer to be able to look at each other face to face? The future I want is full of clean air, which allows me to go out to enjoy with my loved ones, to continue with my daily activities, to be here with you. The solutions we propose will not solve the problems all at once, but we're doing more than most. We are being the agents of change on a huge problem which most people are not willing to be. Our future is in all of us. That's why I say, Let's look for alternatives to the burning of fossil fuels that is polluting the air we breathe and is slowly killing us.
We can understand why there are people who are not willing to make these changes. For one thing, the moral thought of walking or biking is already exhausting. We know that the bike lanes are not something that exists everywhere, and that the riding on the street is intimidating considering the attitude of many drivers. We are aware that we are struggling with a mental health crisis, that the streets and trains no longer feel safe. We are also conscious that there are people who claim that just as things are changing, they will change back again, and that the environment issues are a hoax, and that they are a money making industry.
And while we can change these preconceived ideas of some people, we can start with smaller, feasible steps, such as Mayor's Atom approach of removing people with severe mental illness from public places like the streets and subways, or Governor Kathy Hochul's initiatives to increase the presence of NYPD officers on the platforms. What I have here is a petition to be presented to the relevant authorities to strengthen penalties for drivers who cause accidents against cyclists, whether by dooring, turning, or simply out of anger. These penalties would make it possible to fund and expand the existing bike lane system, making it a reality for everyone. In a moment, we will start handing out these petitions for you to read, and if you want, you can sign the one at the exit of the room. Before concluding this event, we would like to know who here is willing to sign this petition. We want to see hands raised. Who here is willing to continue breathing clean air in the future? Who here is with us when we say, let's look for alternatives to the burning of fossil fuels that is polluting the air we breathe and is slowly killing us? Thanks for your attention.